January 14, 2201, Outer Dust Belt. The battlefield was silent except for the wind pushing ash across the cracked ground, and in that frozen silence 3 alien children knelt with their hands over their heads, waiting for the moment they had been warned about since the day they were taken into the war. Execution on capture. That was the rule. Their commanders had drilled it into them so many times that the words lived inside their bones. Humans never spare enemy child soldiers. Humans kill without hesitation. Humans show no mercy. Talai, the oldest at 14, stared at the boots of fallen soldiers and forced herself not to cry. Rek, 12, breathed in short panicked bursts as he tried to shield Miko, the smallest, who trembled uncontrollably and whispered the same question over and over. Will they hurt us? Talai couldn't answer. The smoke burned her throat. The sky looked bruised. And then human footsteps approached through the dust, steady and unhurried, like the war had not just torn the world apart. The children squeezed their eyes shut, waiting for the end, waiting for the cold metal of a rifle or the sharp command that came before the final shot. But instead, the footsteps stopped in front of them, and a voice, deep, calm, almost gentle, broke the silence. Hey! It's all right. You're safe now. The children froze. That tone didn't match anything they'd been taught. Talai forced her eyes open a sliver and saw a human soldier kneeling down to their level, removing his helmet slowly like a parent approaching frightened kids instead of enemies. Corporal Hayes. His face was dirty, tired, bruised, but his eyes held no anger. No violence. No disgust. Only concern. He reached into his pack and pulled out 3 thermal blankets. Not weapons. Not restraints. Blankets. He extended one toward Miko first. The smallest boy flinched, convinced it was a trick or poison or something meant to trap him. But Hayes only said, "You're cold. Take this." His voice was steady, warm in a place where warmth should not exist. Talai felt her heart twist painfully because this made no sense. None of it. Human soldiers never lowered their guard, never knelt, never offered help to enemy units, especially not trained alien children. That was what she believed. That was what she had been told. But Hayes simply draped the blanket around Miko's shaking shoulders and rubbed his back gently as if comforting one of his own. Rex stared at this in disbelief, his breath catching. "This is wrong," he whispered. "Humans don't do this." Hayes heard him and looked directly at the boy. "We do," he said quietly. More soldiers appeared behind him, scanning the area for threats, but none pointed their weapons at the children. Instead, one of them knelt beside Rek to check if he was injured. Another took out a water bottle and offered it to Talai. She recoiled immediately. "You'll kill us," she gasped, backing away. "You always kill us." Hayes lowered his head a little, not challenging her fear, only meeting it. "Who told you that?" Talai blinked, confusion flooding her face. "My commanders. The trainers. All of them. They said humans kill child soldiers because keeping us alive is dangerous." Hayes sighed softly. "They lied to you." Miko clung to Rek's arm. "But why would they lie?" Hayes didn't answer right away. The ground still trembled beneath them with the distant echo of retreating alien ships. Smoke drifted in lazy spirals. The war wasn't over everywhere, but for these 3 children, it had ended the moment their own army abandoned them as bait. Hayes finally spoke again, his voice low but firm. "Because they needed you to be afraid. Fear makes soldiers easier to control." Talai's throat tightened. Her commanders always said fear made them stronger, sharper, quicker to obey. But now she saw the truth in Hayes's eyes, and it broke something inside her chest. A soldier behind Hayes suddenly shouted, "Incoming drone." The children screamed as a hostile alien war drone surged through the smoke, scanning for survivors to eliminate so no evidence of the lost child unit remained. It hovered, locking onto the heat signatures of the kids. Miko cried out, believing his death had come at last. But Hayes didn't run. He didn't hide. He didn't use the children as shields, the way that commanders always said humans would. Instead, he stepped in front of them, spreading his arms to cover all 3. The rest of the human squad snapped into motion, forming a protective barrier around the children as the drone charged its weapon. Rex stared at this in shock, unable to understand. Why? Why protect us? We're enemies. Hayes didn't look back. Not today, he said. You're kids. That's all that matters. The drone fired, but a human sniper shot hit it midair, knocking it into a burning pile of rubble. The explosion sent sparks raining down across the ground like falling stars. When the smoke cleared, the alien children found themselves still alive, wrapped in blankets, protected by the soldiers they had been taught to fear. Talai felt something she hadn't felt since her family died: safety. Real safety. Not forced obedience. Not survival through violence. Hayes knelt again, brushing ash off her face gently. We're getting you out of here. No cages. No harm. Just rest. Talai trembled. You aren't killing us. Hayes shook his head softly. No. We're saving you. She didn't know what to say. None of them did. Because for the first time in their short, war-scarred lives, something impossible happened. Humans showed them kindness. And that was the moment the war truly ended, not when the bombs stopped falling, but when 3 alien children realized everything they had been taught about humans was a lie. The humans moved fast, but every step away from the battlefield felt unreal to Talai, Rek, and Miko, as if they were walking inside a dream they didn't trust. The sky above them churned with the dying smoke of the battle, and the wind carried the bitter scent of burned metal and scorched soil. The children walked in silence, wrapped in the thermal blankets Hayes had given them, unsure whether to cling to them or drop them in fear of hidden traps. The human squad stayed close, forming a protective circle around the 3 small figures. Not a cage. Not a formation. A shield. But the children didn't understand that yet. Their instincts screamed danger with every shift of the wind, every crunch of boots behind them, every glance from the soldiers who were supposed to be their enemies. Rek kept turning his head, counting how many humans were near him, convinced they would attack from behind. Miko stayed glued to Rek's arm, trying to hide his face under the blanket. Talai walked rigid and silent, her shoulders tight, waiting for the moment this strange kindness would snap and reveal the human's true nature. She whispered to Rek, barely loud enough for the wind to catch. Be ready. They're waiting for us to slip. Rek didn't answer. He didn't know what to believe anymore. Ahead of them, Hayes slowed his pace to make sure the children could keep up. The terrain had turned rough, broken by trenches and scattered metal remains. Smoke still rose from shattered vehicles. Hayes knelt once to check Miko's trembling hands. Cold. Dehydrated. Scared. But alive. Here, drink some water, Hayes said, offering a bottle. Miko backed away instantly, shaking his head like he'd been struck. Poison. Hayes blinked, confused for a moment before understanding flickered across his face. He shook the bottle gently. It's clean. Just water. Nothing else. Miko's eyes filled with tears. Our commanders, they said humans poison prisoners so they talk. Hayes slowly placed the bottle on the ground and backed up a step. Then take it yourself. No tricks. If it scares you, I won't touch it. Talai watched closely, expecting a lie, expecting him to grab them the moment they reached for it. But Hayes didn't move. He just waited in the cold wind. After several long seconds, Miko crawled forward, grabbed the bottle with shaking fingers, and sniffed it. Then he sipped. His eyes widened. It's real water, he whispered in disbelief. Rek felt something shift inside him, fear cracking, confusion growing. But before anything more could happen, the sky trembled with a new, distant sound. Thunder. But not real thunder. Engine thunder. Hayes raised a hand, signaling everyone to halt. The squad froze instantly. Talai's stomach clenched. Are they your ships? She whispered. Hayes listened carefully. No. Not ours. The children flinched. That meant only one thing. Their own people. A scout craft or recovery unit. Miko tugged on Rek's sleeve. They're coming for us. Talai's eyes filled with desperate hope. Maybe they didn't abandon us. Maybe they're taking us back. But Hayes shook his head slowly, looking at them with a steady sadness. They won't save you. They'll silence you. Talai's spine went cold. What do you mean? Hayes exhaled, his voice low. Your commanders left you behind. If they find you with us, they won't take you home, they'll kill you before you can speak. Rex's breath hitched. That's not true. They care about us. Hayes didn't argue. He didn't need to. The children knew, deep down, what happened to child soldiers who failed missions. Even if they didn't want to face it. The engine roar grew louder. The air shook. Hayes grabbed the children gently but firmly. We need to move. Now. Darren, one of the soldiers, pointed toward a shallow ravine. Storm cover there. Move. The squad hustled into the ravine just as a dark alien aircraft passed overhead, scanning the ground with a sharp blue beam. The children pressed themselves against the dirt wall, trembling so hard their teeth clacked. Rek whispered, "Why would they kill us?" Hayes looked at him. "Because you know too much." Silence fell like a heavy blanket. The truth settled deeper than the cold ever could. When the drone finally passed, the humans moved again, this time toward an emergency evacuation site several miles away. But the terrain grew harsher, and debris from broken buildings forced them to detour through a collapsed trench line. Talai tripped once, her knees hitting the ground. Hayes immediately helped her up. "Careful." Talai jerked away. "Don't touch me." Hayes didn't react with anger. Only quiet patience. "As you wish. But stay close." She glared, but the storm winds were rising, and something in Hayes's calm expression silenced her protests. They walked another half-hour before the first real danger struck. A buried proximity mine suddenly clicked beneath Rex's foot. Everyone froze. Hayes moved first, dropping to his knees beside Rex, speaking softly. "Don't move." Rex's entire body shook. "I didn't mean to step on it. I didn't see it." Hayes looked him in the eyes. "It's okay. I've got you." Talai grabbed Miko, pulling him back. The rest of the squad fanned out quickly, searching for safe ground. Hayes used his gloves to gently brush away the dirt around the mine. Rex sobbed, breath shuddering. "I'm going to die." Hayes shook his head. "Not today." Then, in one swift motion, he lifted Rex off the mine and tossed him toward Talai before throwing himself sideways as the mine detonated. The explosion threw dirt into the sky, shaking the trench, ringing in everyone's ears. When the dust settled, Rex lay trembling in Talai's arms. Hayes groaned on the ground, his shoulder bleeding. Miko burst into tears, running to him. "Why did you save me?" Hayes winced but smiled weakly. "Because you're a kid. And kids shouldn't die in wars made by adults." Talai looked at Hayes differently now, fear, confusion, and something new mixing in her eyes. "This is not how enemies behave. This is not how monsters act." Rex clung to Hayes's arm, crying into his sleeve. Talai whispered to herself, voice breaking. "Why are they protecting us?" Hayes didn't answer. He just motioned for the squad to help him up. They continued toward safety slowly, carrying Hayes now instead of the children. And as the sun lowered behind the crushed horizon, the truth finally cracked something inside Talai, Rex, and Miko. The humans weren't waiting to kill them. They weren't using them. They weren't hurting them. They were saving them. Even when it meant bleeding for them. Even when it meant dying for them. For the first time in their lives, the children felt a strange, quiet warmth rising inside their chests. Not safety. Not yet. But something close. Something they had never known before. Someone cared if they lived. The shelter was barely standing, its metal beams twisted from past explosions, its walls cracked from shockwaves that shook the battlefield months before. But it was the only structure in the area still offering a roof, and Hayes led the children inside with slow, careful steps, his wounded arm pressed against his chest. The sun had begun to set now, turning the sky orange, the color reflecting off broken glass and piles of rubble. The human squad moved in first, sweeping the interior to ensure no enemy forces remained. When they gave the all-clear, Hayes guided Talai, Rex, and Miko into the farthest corner, where some old supply crates could serve as makeshift seats. The children huddled together silently, terrified not of bombs or mines anymore but of the strange world they found themselves in, a world where their enemies treated them with gentle hands instead of cruel ones. Hayes lowered himself onto a crate with a sharp breath as the medic, Jonas, examined his shoulder. Talai watched closely, convinced Jonas would blame her for Hayes's injury. But Jonas only wrapped the wound carefully, muttering to Hayes, "You're lucky, sir. Could have lost the arm." Hayes just nodded, then glanced toward the kids. "They okay?" Jonas's eyes softened. "Scared. But no serious injuries. Physically, anyway." Hayes exhaled slowly. Good. That was all he cared about. The children stayed pressed against each other, unsure if they should speak or keep silent. Miko finally whispered, "Are we staying here tonight?" Hayes heard him and nodded. "Just for a while. Until evac arrives." Rek blinked at the word. Evac. He had heard that word before in alien training. It meant removal of high-value personnel. He didn't feel high value. He didn't even feel like a person. Talai frowned. "Are you taking us to a prison?" The squad fell silent at that question. Jonas glanced at Hayes, letting him answer. Hayes shook his head. "No. Not a prison. A safe base. Somewhere warm. Somewhere with food." Talai's eyes narrowed. "Then what do you want from us?" "Information. Lies. Work. Something. You saved us. Why?" Hayes leaned forward slightly, ignoring the ache in his shoulder. "Because you're children." Talai's chest tightened. That answer again. The one she couldn't understand. Rex stared at his hands. "Back home, they said humans don't see children, just soldiers." Hayes sighed. "Back home, your leaders needed you to believe that." Miko asked in a trembling voice, "Why? Why lie?" Hayes looked at the three of them, their small bodies still shivering despite the blankets. "Because fear makes armies easier to control. Because if you feared us, you'd fight harder. Because you'd think surrender meant death." Talai swallowed hard. "Our commanders said surrender is worse than death." Jonas, who had been setting up a heater, turned around. "That's what monsters say, not leaders." That made Miko flinch, as if the idea itself was too big. Outside, the wind howled through gaps in the broken walls, carrying dust and cold into the shelter. The heater clicked on, sending thin waves of warmth into the air. Slowly, the children relaxed enough to uncurl their legs. Hayes waited a moment before gently asking, "How long have you been fighting?" Talai stiffened. We were assigned at different times." Jonas frowned. "Assigned. Not trained. Not volunteered. Assigned." Rek looked down. "They took us from our families." Hayes felt a sharp sting in his chest. That was what he'd suspected, but hearing it out loud was different. Talai's voice trembled despite her attempt to sound strong. "They said we would make our families proud. That fighting humans was honor. That if we died, our names would be written in the Hall of Stars." Miko added quietly, "They said humans kill alien children to break our spirits." Jonas cursed under his breath at that. Hayes rubbed his forehead. "I'm sorry they told you such things." Talai frowned. "Are they not true?" Hayes shook his head firmly. "None of it." The children exchanged fractured looks, their entire belief system cracking like thin ice. For a moment they were quiet, until Rek whispered, "Why did our commanders run? Why did they leave us?" Hayes looked at him with a softness that made Rek look away in confusion. "Because they didn't see you as children. Only tools. Replaceable ones." Miko hugged himself. "But they said they cared." Hayes didn't lie to him. "I'm sure some soldiers cared. But the leaders, no. They used you." Talai felt something inside her begin to crumble, something she had been holding onto since the day she was taken from her family, a tiny hope that her commanders were heroes, that the war had meaning, that she mattered. But Hayes's words made sense in a way she hated. "They abandoned us because we failed," she whispered. Hayes shook his head. "Not because you failed. Because they didn't want the truth of their child army to fall into our hands." Talai felt her breath catch. She had never heard anyone talk to her so honestly. It scared her. Jonas finished adjusting the heater and placed ration packs on the ground near the children. They stared at them as if unsure whether touching them was allowed. "Go ahead," Jonas said. "It's yours." Rex slowly reached for one, unwrapping it with trembling fingers. The food smelled simple but warm. He brought it to his mouth, then froze. Talai whispered, "What if it's drugged?" Hayes answered gently, "If we wanted to drug you, we wouldn't be feeding you in the open." Rek hesitated, then took a bite. His eyes widened. "Real food." Jonas smiled faintly. "You're safe. Nobody here will hurt you." The wind paused outside, leaving a strange quiet in the shelter. Talai lifted her meal slowly, taking a small bite. Her eyes softened just a fraction. Miko ate quickly, as if afraid it would vanish. Watching them, Hayes felt a deep ache he didn't show. Kids shouldn't eat like survivors. They should eat like children. Then, Talai said something that made the room fall still. "If we had been human children, would your army have saved us the same way?" Hayes met her eyes with absolute certainty. "Yes. Always." Talai didn't know how to respond. No adult had ever spoken to her like that, with honesty instead of demands. It unsettled her. But it also warmed something inside her chest in a way she didn't know how to describe. Rek leaned against the wall, exhaustion finally pulling at his eyes. Miko curled into the blanket, drifting between fear and peace. Talai watched Hayes until her gaze softened, not with trust requires time, but with the first fragile flicker of possibility. For the first time in their lives, the three alien children were safe. Not because they fought. Not because they obeyed. But because their enemies chose kindness over cruelty. And that, more than any battlefield victory, was the moment a new world quietly began for them. The heater hummed softly, pushing weak warmth into the cracked shelter as night settled over the ruins. Talai, Rek, and Miko sat close to one another, finally breathing without shaking, though their eyes still carried the weight of everything they had survived. Hayes sat near the doorway with his injured shoulder wrapped tight, keeping watch even though exhaustion pulled at his face. The rest of the human squad moved quietly through the shelter, reinforcing walls, checking ammo, whispering updates. The calm felt fragile, like a thin shell that could break any second. And it did. Near midnight, a faint vibrating noise crawled through the broken metal floor, soft at first, but growing steadily louder. Talai felt the tremor before she heard the sound. She tensed immediately, gripping Rek's arm. "Something's coming." Hayes lifted his head sharply. Everyone quiet. The squad froze, listening. The vibration deepened into a dull hum that echoed through the shelter walls. Jonas cursed under his breath. "That's not wind." Hayes nodded grimly. "That's a ship engine. But not ours." Rek's eyes widened, terror filling them. "It's them. Our army. They found us." Miko began to shake, pulling the blanket tighter around his small body. "They'll take us away. Or worse." Hayes leaned close to the children, speaking quietly but firmly. "Listen to me. Whatever happens, stay behind us. Do not run into the open. They will shoot anything that moves." Talai swallowed hard. "Why would they shoot us?" Hayes didn't soften the truth. "Because you are witnesses. And they don't want witnesses." Before Talai could respond, a bright blue beam swept across the cracks in the shelter roof, scanning the area. The squad ducked behind pillars and broken support beams. The children crouched low. The humming outside grew louder until a shadow passed over the entrance, a sleek, angular alien wrecking craft. It descended with a sharp hiss of venting air. Hayes's expression hardened. "Everyone hold your positions. No sound unless they enter." The alien ship lowered landing spikes, sending a jolt through the ground. A hatch opened with a metallic clank, and alien soldiers stepped out, moving with rigid precision. Their armor gleamed under the dim moonlight, cold, sharp, impersonal. Talai recognized the insignia. High Command Recon Unit. Not rescuers. Not protectors. Execution Squad. One of the alien soldiers scanned tracks in the dirt, then spoke in a cold voice that carried easily through the cracked walls. "It seems the child units fled toward this direction." Another soldier answered, "They cannot be allowed to return. Orders are clear. Silence them on sight." Miko whimpered, muffling his sob with both hands. Rek bit down so hard on his lip that he tasted blood. Talai felt fury and heartbreak twist together inside her. Her own army. Her own people. They came to kill her, not save her. Hayes placed a steady hand on her shoulder, grounding her. Talai, listen. You stay with me. No one touches you. She stared at him, bewildered. Why would you protect us? Hayes looked at her with a calm, unshakable certainty. Because you deserve to live. Talai blinked fast as tears blurred her vision. No one had ever said that to her. Not once. The alien recon team approached the shelter cautiously, sweeping their rifles back and forth. Hayes signaled his squad silently. Positions. They spread out, forming lines of cover behind crumbled walls, ready for contact. Jonas whispered to Hayes, "We could sneak the kids out the back." Hayes shook his head. Too exposed. And too late. The lead alien soldier stepped into the entrance. For a moment, everything was silent except the wind. Then his gaze landed on the children huddled together in the dim light. His expression hardened instantly. There they are. He raised his rifle. Hayes moved faster than Talai had ever seen. He slammed into the alien soldier and knocked the rifle upward right as it fired. The shot burned a hole through the ceiling instead of a child's body. Chaos erupted. The shelter exploded into noise as humans and aliens collided in close-quarters combat. Gunfire cracked. Sparks flew. The children ducked behind a supply crate, covering their ears against the deafening blasts. Rek peeked out for a second and saw Hayes grappling with two alien soldiers at once, his injured arm bleeding again but his movements still determined and fierce. Jonas fired from behind a pillar, hitting an alien aiming at Talai. Miko cried out when a plasma blast struck the wall inches above his head, showering him in dust and debris. Talai grabbed his hand and pulled him lower. "Stay down, Miko. Don't move." She tried to stay calm, but her heart was pounding so loud it drowned out the gunfire. Rex squeezed Talai's arm with trembling fingers. "They're going to kill us." Talai shook her head fiercely, even though fear clawed at her. "Hayes won't let them." The battle intensified. One alien soldier burst through the side opening, aiming directly at the crate where the children hid. Talai screamed and covered Miko with her arms, bracing for the shot. But it never came. Hayes appeared out of nowhere, tackling the aliens so hard they crashed into a steel beam. He delivered a sharp strike that disarmed the soldier, then slammed him to the floor. Hayes turned to the children, breathing hard. "Stay with me." His voice shook, not with fear, but with desperation. He refused to lose them. He refused to let them die. Another alien soldier fired from the doorway, hitting Hayes in the leg. He fell to one knee. Talai screamed, reaching toward him, but an explosion outside rocked the ground before she could move. The wrecking ship's engines flared dangerously, then went silent as one of the human soldiers managed to disable it with a heavy blast. The remaining aliens hesitated. Their extraction was gone. Their commander was down. Jonas shouted, "They're retreating." And he was right. The alien soldiers pulled back toward the entrance, dragging their wounded. Before leaving, the commander spat something in their language, cold, venomous, final. Talai understood enough to translate. "They said we were never meant to live." Hayes gritted his teeth, forcing himself upright even with his bleeding leg. "Not anymore," he said. "Not while you're with us." When the last alien soldier vanished into the smoke outside, silence fell heavy and thick over the shelter. Talai crawled out from behind the crate, her breathing uneven. Miko followed, clinging to her clothes. Rek approached Hayes hesitantly, eyes wide. "Why did you fight for us? Why would you risk your life?" Hayes wiped blood from his forehead and sat back against the wall. "Because no child deserves to die for someone else's war." The words hit the children harder than any bullet could. Rek's lip trembled. Miko burst into tears. Talai stared at Hayes, her voice breaking. "You protected us, even from our own people." Hayes nodded. "Always." For the first time in their lives, the children realized something impossible. The humans had become the only ones fighting for them. The only ones who saw them as children. The only ones who wanted them alive. And that truth sank deep, reshaping everything they thought they knew about enemies, loyalty, and survival. That night, as the wind died and the fire crackled, Talai whispered something she never imagined saying. "We're safer with you than we ever were with them." And no one, not even Hayes, knew just how far that truth would take them next. The shelter smelled of smoke, metal, and fear, but something new lingered there too, hope, trembling but alive. After the alien Recon squad retreated, the humans worked quickly to fortify the shelter, stacking crates and debris to block openings and sealing cracks to keep out the cold night air. Hayes sat against the far wall, bleeding from his shoulder and leg, but still alert, still watching the children more than his own wounds. Jonas knelt beside him again, tearing open medical supplies. "You're losing too much blood, sir." Hayes shook his head. "I'm fine. Check the kids." Jonas glared. "They are fine. You're not." Hayes didn't argue further. He just looked toward the children, who hovered a few steps away, torn between wanting to approach and being afraid to get close. Talai stepped forward first, her voice low and careful, as if approaching a dangerous animal. "You shouldn't have protected us like that." Hayes raised an eyebrow. "Why not?" It was the only thing that made sense. Talai's breath caught. "Because we're the enemy." Rek nodded shakily. "You got hurt because of us." Hayes shook his head slowly. "I got hurt because your people tried to kill you. Not because of anything you did." That silenced the children. They had never heard an adult separate them from the violence forced upon them. Miko, who hadn't spoken much since the ambush, tugged gently at Hayes's sleeve. "Please don't die." Hayes gave a tired laugh. "I'm not planning to." But the truth was harsher. Hayes's wounds were serious, the squad was low on ammo, and the alien Recon team was likely regrouping outside the ruins. They didn't have much time. Darren approached Hayes, voice grim. "Sir, our evac team is 30 minutes out, but enemy signals are increasing. We need to move or we'll get boxed in." Hayes nodded and tried to push himself upright, but pain shot through his leg. Jonas grabbed his shoulder. "You're in no shape to walk far." Hayes steadied his breath. "Doesn't matter. They need out. And I'm not leaving them." Those words hit Talai so hard she flinched. Not leaving them. No one had ever said that to them. Their commanders only said, "Survive if useful. Die if not." Miko pressed closer to Rek, whispering, "Hayes won't leave us." Rek didn't answer, but something shifted in his eyes, trust growing slowly like dawn light. The squad gathered near the back exit, preparing for a cautious retreat, but a sharp metallic clang outside froze everyone. Jonas whispered, "They are back." Talai's heart lurched. The aliens. They came again. Hayes motioned to the children. "Stay behind the overturned crate. Do not move unless I call you." The children obeyed instantly, not from fear, but because for the first time they believed someone genuinely wanted to protect them. The shelter trembled as something heavy landed outside. A command voice rang out, one they recognized instantly. Commander Varric. The man who once oversaw their training. The one who told them humans butcher alien children like trophies. The one who promised glory in combat, but used them as shields. The one they had desperately hoped would come for them. Now he had come, to erase the evidence of their existence. Hayes's face hardened. Jonas cursed. Darren whispered, "We're surrounded." Rek's breath hitched. "They'll kill us," he whispered to Talai. "They always said failure means death." Talai felt tears burn her eyes. "No. Not now. Not after everything." Hayes crouched beside them, ignoring his wounds. "Listen. We're getting you out. But I need you three to do something for us. Something brave." Rek looked terrified. "What?" Hayes pointed toward the old wiring panel near the ceiling. "That panel controls the outer flood lamps. If you get it working again, we can blind the Recon squad long enough to break through." "But..." Talai stared up at the panel. "It's too high." Hayes shook his head. "Not for you. You're light. Fast. And clever. I've seen it." Those words, fast, clever, sounded unreal. Their commanders had only ever called them weak, replaceable, mistakes. To be praised felt like stepping into sunlight. Talai nodded slowly. "I'll do it." Rek hesitated. "Hayes, if they see me, they'll kill me." Hayes rested a hand on his shoulder. "Not while we're here. Not while I'm breathing." Rek swallowed hard. "Then, I'll help." Miko grabbed Taylai's arm. Don't leave me. She wiped his tears. You're going to help too. Just stay close. Commander Varric's voice thundered outside again. I know the child units are inside. Surrender them, humans. Or be destroyed with them. Taylai felt her stomach twist. He didn't even use their names. To him they were numbers. Tools. Nothing. Hayes motioned. Go. Now. Taylai and Rek climbed the crates like small shadow creatures, moving quickly and quietly. Miko stayed below, handing them tools as Jonas whispered directions. They worked with trembling hands, trying not to drop anything. Outside, heavy footsteps approached the entrance. Jonas whispered urgently, Taylai, hurry. Taylai's fingers worked furiously, prying open the panel. Rek connected two wires he barely understood, sparks flying dangerously close to his face. Hayes positioned himself at the doorway despite his injured leg, rifle raised, body ready to shield all three children the second the aliens burst in. Then, click. The flood lamps outside blazed to life like miniature suns. Alien soldiers shouted in shock, their visors overwhelmed with blinding white light. Jonas yelled, move. Now. Darren fired 2 precise shots. Hayes grabbed Miko, pulling him close as he limped toward the exit. Taylai and Rek climbed down fast, landing beside them. The squad burst out of the shelter, using the brief confusion to push through enemy lines. But Commander Varric was not blinded. He turned toward the children, his expression cold with fury. You three. After everything I gave you, you betray your own people. He raised his weapon. Miko screamed. Taylai stepped in front of him without thinking. But the shot never reached them, because Hayes lunged, slamming his shoulder into Taylai and knocking all three children to the ground as the blast hit him in the side. He collapsed with a cry of pain. Taylai grabbed him, horror overtaking her. Hayes. Hayes. Get up. Please get up. Hayes gritted his teeth, breath shaking. Keep moving. Don't stop. You're almost safe. Jonas dragged Hayes away while Darren fired suppressive shots. The evac shuttle appeared through the smoke, descending fast. Varric shouted, stop them. But the children didn't stop. They grabbed Hayes's arms, pulling with all their strength. Rex sobbed through clenched teeth. We're not leaving you. Not after you saved us. Taylai screamed through tears, help us. Help him. The squad reached the shuttle just as enemy fire rained behind them. The doors slammed shut. The shuttle lifted. Inside, Hayes lay on the floor, bleeding heavily. The three children crowded over him, clutching his hands. Miko cried openly now. Please don't die. You saved us. You can't die now. Rex's voice cracked. You said you wouldn't leave us. You promised. Taylai held Hayes's face, her voice breaking. You kept us alive. Now we'll keep you alive. Hayes forced a weak smile. I knew you would. For the first time ever, the alien children weren't being rescued. They were the rescuers. And they refused, absolutely refused, to let the only person who ever cared for them slip away. The evac shuttle hummed steadily through the dark skies, its engines cutting through the cold air as the battlefield shrank far below. Inside, everything was chaos, medical lights flickering, alarms beeping, soldiers shouting orders, but Taylai, Rek, and Miko heard none of it. Their entire world was the man bleeding out on the floor in front of them. Hayes's breaths were shallow, uneven. His uniform was soaked through with red where Commander Varric's shot had torn into his side. Jonas knelt beside him, working furiously, trying to stop the bleeding with shaking hands. Stay with me, Hayes. Don't you dare check out. Not now. Hayes let out a weak laugh. I'm not going anywhere. Sir, I swear, Jonas's voice cracked. Don't talk. Just breathe. The children pressed close, refusing to let go. Taylai held Hayes's hand with a fierce grip, fighting tears that stung her eyes. Rek knelt on Hayes's other side, whispering over and over, You promised us. You promised. Miko lay against Hayes's arm, sobbing so hard his small body shook. The shuttle jolted briefly as turbulence hit, making everyone grab onto something to stay upright. Jonas muttered a curse and reached for the medical kit. Taylai looked at him, panic rising in her chest. Is he dying? Jonas paused just a moment before answering. Not if I can stop it. Talai's heart dropped. That wasn't a yes. And not a no. Hayes forced his eyes open and looked at her, his breath hitching. Talai, are you okay? Talai choked on her answer. You're the one hurt. Why are you worried about us? Hayes tried to smile. Because, you're kids. That's my job. Miko cried harder at that. Don't say goodbye. Don't. Hayes reached a weak hand toward Miko's cheek. I'm not saying goodbye. Just resting. The shuttle sped through the sky, lights flashing as the pilot signaled urgently to the landing base. Jonas kept pressure on the wound, shaking his head. I need a full med team now. Come on, Hayes. Stay awake. Don't close your eyes. Hayes murmured, I'm trying. His eyes fluttered. Rek grabbed Hayes's hand and shouted, Hayes. Stay awake. You saved us. Now let us save you. Hayes's gaze softened. He tried to lift his hand but lacked the strength. But Talai held it for him. The shuttle suddenly steadied. A voice called from the cockpit. 5 minutes to medical base. Hold on back there. 5 minutes felt like forever. Hayes's breathing grew labored. Talai pressed her forehead against his arm. You said you wouldn't leave us. You can't leave us now. Miko whispered, You're the only one who wants us alive. You're the only one who sees us. Rek wiped his tears roughly with the back of his hand, trying to be strong. We fought for you. So don't you dare give up on us. Hayes blinked slowly, his eyes glassy. His voice was barely a whisper. I'm proud of you. All three of you. Those words struck the children like a blade to the heart. They had never, not once, not even from their own families, heard anyone say they were proud of them. Before anyone could say another word, the shuttle descended sharply and landed with a heavy thud. The doors flew open. Medics stormed inside, lifting Hayes onto a stretcher. Talai grabbed his hand again. Wait. Don't take him without us. A medic stopped her gently. He needs surgery. We'll take care of him. Rek shook his head violently. No. You don't understand. We're not leaving him. But the medics had to move fast. Hayes's hand slipped from Talai's as they wheeled him out. Miko reached for him desperately. Hayes. Hayes. Don't go. The children tried to run after the stretcher, but Jonas held them back gently. Hey. Stop. They are saving him. They are not taking him away from you. Talai shook her head, trembling. But others always said that. That they were helping. And then people disappeared. Jonas knelt in front of her, his voice steady but kind. I promise you this is different. No one is taking him to hurt him. They are fixing him. He will come back. Talai stared into Jonas's eyes, searching for lies. There were none. The children were taken to a quiet waiting room, soft lights, clean floors, warm blankets. Everything was too gentle, too calm, too unfamiliar. Miko curled up in the blanket, still crying. Rex sat stiffly beside him, eyes unfocused. Talai paced the room like she might shatter if she stopped moving. Every minute felt like an hour. Every sound from the hallway made their hearts jump. They had never waited for someone before. They had never wanted someone to return. Finally, after what felt like a lifetime, the door opened and a doctor stepped inside. The children froze instantly. Jonas stood behind the doctor, and the look in his eyes made their breath catch, relief. The doctor spoke softly. He's alive. Talai dropped to her knees, all strength leaving her. Rek covered his face and started crying silently. Miko whimpered, collapsing into Jonas's arms. The doctor continued, Hayes is stable. We repaired the damage. He'll recover with rest. Talai's throat tightened. Can we see him? The doctor nodded. Yes. He asked for you. That sentence alone broke them all over again. They followed the doctor down the hall, into a quiet medical ward. Hayes lay on a bed, bandaged but awake. Pale, tired, but alive. Talai rushed forward, stopping only when she reached his side. Rek and Miko clung to the other side of the bed. Hayes smiled faintly. Told you. I'm not going anywhere. Talai wiped her eyes roughly. You scared us. Hayes chuckled weakly. You scared me first, fixing that panel under fire. Miko sniffled. We thought we lost you. Hayes reached out and placed his hand on Miko's head. Not a chance. Rex stepped closer, voice trembling. You saved us from the bombs. From the drones. From our commanders. Hayes nodded. Of course. Talai stared at him with a fierce intensity. No one has ever fought for us. Not even our own people. Hayes met her gaze steadily. Well, someone should. Someone has to show you that your lives matter. Rex whispered, do they? Really? Hayes held out his hand. Yes. More than you know. And not because of what you can do. But because of who you are. Those words landed deep in their hearts, deeper than any order, deeper than any training, deeper than any lie. Jonas stepped forward. The Human Council has decided. The children are granted asylum. They are safe here. Rex choked. Safe. Miko blinked in disbelief. No more fighting. No more running. No more fear. Talai whispered the words like a prayer. No more commanders. No more being tools. Hayes nodded. No. You're free. All three of you. Miko crawled onto the bed and hugged Hayes carefully. Rex followed, burying his face against the blanket. Talai hesitated, then leaned in and rested her forehead gently against Hayes's hand. Hayes closed his eyes, holding onto all three of them with the strength he had left. They had come into his life expecting death. He had given them humanity. And now, in a quiet medical room far from war, three alien children finally found something they had never known before, not training, not commands, not fear. A future,